Hello and welcome to this video series. In this video series, we will see what is Python, how we can learn to code in Python, and in this particular video, before we begin to code, we want to know what is Python. So Python, how it started its journey as a programming language. We will see different versions of Python, who invented this language Python, and what are the features this language has to offer. So I'm really excited to bring you this course. This course is going to be targeted at very beginner level, but if you have some programming experience, we really welcome you to this course. I'm very excited to bring this. So let's dive into our first slide. So when I talk about history of a programming language, or when we learn about new language, we should know about history of that language. So Python was invented by Guido van Rossum in 1990 at CWI in Netherlands, when he published his first paper in February 1991, and he became benevolent director for life till July 2018, when he stepped down himself from the position. So when I talk about benevolent director for life, that's a title given to small number of people who act as a final authority on any disputes for that occurs during the course of development. So this language is basically derived from ABC programming language that is also developed at CWI, and its name is driven from Monty's Python Flying Circus, because Rossum was a great fan of this. So with this history of Python, it became a very famous programming languages and is surviving for last 30 years. And in 2020, or since the advent of AI, the language has got more popularity than any other language. So before we begin, let's talk about what Python is. Python is a high-level programming language that is closer to computers, that is closer to humans instead of computers. So when I talk about that it is closer to human, I mean that language is human understandable. It has one layer that is called interpreter, that act as a converter from human code, human readable code, to machine code. So definitely human write code in some language. For example, in English language, I can declare an integer in Python as int x equal to 0, that we will see in a few moments, and that is being converted to machine level of code of zeros and ones, so that my processor can understand what is this set of instruction is. Secondly, it is an interactive language. We can interact with interpreter directly from the terminal, that we will see in a moment again, and it follows all the object oriented programming concepts. So these are called the OOPS concept. Don't worry about this. If you don't understand what OOPS concepts are, with the advent of time while learning this language, you will come to know about this. Next, we have more features on this language. It can interface to all the major commercial databases that are available. For example, MySQL, PostgreSQL, MongoDB, and there are many others. So a language that can interface with majority of database is a really strong point of language, because it doesn't limit you for the selection of database. You can select any of the database and you can start working with Python with that database. So database stores your data from any application you are developing. It supports desktop based application via Tinkers, and it supports web-based applications via Django as well as Flask. So there are also other frameworks that are available which you can use to develop desktop-based and web-based applications that are written on Python. So we will definitely see any of these frameworks by the end of the course. Secondly, this language is easy to maintain, read, and it is closer to human than it is closer to computers, because we can read and write what we as a humans can understand rather than a computer. Secondly, it's mostly said that Python is a interpreted language, but in modern programming world, this difference has shrunken to zero almost, because any language can be compiled as an interpreted language, or it can be run as a compiled program. It can run as an interpreted language or a compiled program. Though the difference between interpreted and compiled languages is very minute, that in compiled language entire code is converted into machine code and that processor can run. Earlier, before the development of just-in-time compilation, these languages were used to be fast, but currently you cannot actually feel the difference of speed between these two languages. With this, I hope you have some understanding of Python, its history, and what type of language it is. In next video, we will see what are the different versions of Python, and we will also see some other features of Python. With this, I really thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you next time. Hi guys, welcome to this video. In this video we will see that why beginners should always learn Python. In previous video we came to know across what is Python, who invented Python, and how Python survived its 30 years old history. In this video we will see what are the top reasons why we should learn Python and why it actually survived for these many years. So I'm really excited for this video, and let's dive in. So Python is a very simple and easy language. It's available for free and open source. You can always go to the GitHub repository for Python and raise your issues and concern for this. It has a very large community that is supporting this language. You can find a lot of developers and experts who are taking this language forward and writing the further modules. It's a high level language. We already saw in the previous video that it's a high level language that is closer to human beings, and it's written in English, so we can understand it better than a computer. It's highly portable and it has a huge cross language operations because it has interface with all the major language wrappers available in the different repositories, where you can use Python to call operations or call the functions from different languages. And finally, the Python is available for most of the operating systems like Mac, almost for every operating system, for Linux and for Windows as well. Finally, we see that for application development, Python is well suited language because of, if we talk about web frameworks, Django, Flask and Pylons are some of the major web frameworks which help us to develop complex and simple website. Like the Django is used for the complex website, while the Flask is a micro website framework. And if we talk about some major websites that are built using Python, then some of these are Instagram, Bitbucket and Pinterest. So I'm sure you have heard about these websites, and if you have not heard about these websites, go ahead, go to Google and find out what these websites are. Finally, we can use Thinker library to draw the GUI, that's graphical user interface for offline applications, and PY game to for the game development. That's why I personally feel that this language is very powerful, which lets you develop applications for web as well as for the desktop. While it also supports the web scraping using Beautiful Soup and Scrappy. So these are the two great libraries that help us to collect the data from web via scrapping. The advent of artificial intelligence and the major libraries that are used to design these models for data science are written in Python as well. Two of the most famous libraries, the Keras and the TensorFlow, are written in Python, and of course these libraries are open source as well. OpenCV is a library for computer vision applications, so it is also written in Python. It helps a lot for face recognition and other image recognition tasks. So I would really encourage you to check out more about these libraries. Python is also great as a testing framework because it has a Selenium and Splinter libraries. The Selenium is browser automation tool which you can use to automate some of the your task, and it has a great cross-platform and cross-browser testing frameworks of PyTest and Robot framework. You can also use this language for your automation, like we just talked about Selenium. It's a scripting language. You can fill in your information and tell this Selenium to do some particular set of instructions for you on a Chromium browser or some other browser plugin, and the Selenium will perform all the set of instructions that you have written to it. And finally, it's a language for many of the lead data scientists. Previously the language was MATLAB, but with the advent of NumPy, a scientific computation library, and pandas for data frames and data manipulation, this language became the forerunner for data scientists. If we talk about the visualization of Python, the libraries Matplotlib and the Seaborns are the famous libraries that can help us draw great insights from the data set we have. So these are the top reasons why we should learn Python in 2020. I hope you like this video, and I'll see you next time. Hello, welcome to this video. In this video we are going to see what are the different versions of Python, what is the difference between those versions, which versions are used in industry today, and as a beginner which version is suitable for your learning. So let's dive into our first slide. So these are the list of different versions. Although so many versions were released than this small list I have here, but these are the major versions that are released and very famous one. So Python 1.0 was released in January 1994. We are not going to talk about this version since it's a very old version. The next major version that was released is Python 2.0 on 16th October 2000, while Python 3 was released on 3rd of December 2008. Both these versions are very different in the nature of their development, the way Python got developed. While the most famous version was Python 2.7, but it has now reached its end of its life. It is no longer maintained, it's no longer supported, and it is no longer developed as well. So the ultimate choice of your learning turns out to be Python 3.0. The Python 3.6 released on 23rd of December 2016 became the most famous version of Python 3, while the latest release is 3.8.10 that was released on 18 December 2019. You can find a full list of Python releasing versions on Wikipedia if you are really interested in. So let's move on to the next slide about Python 2. Python 2 made the core development process easier than earlier version. So developers were like following some process in which Python 2 implemented implementation was done is a lot easier than earlier version of Python 1, and it implemented technical detail of Python enhancement proposal document. So as I already told you that 2.7 is no longer supported. It is the last version of Python 2 and it's not supported anymore, and in January 2020, that is this month, this version will be discontinued at all. So if we talk about Python 3, it's backward incompatible. So any code written in Python 2, you cannot run that code simply in Python 3. So we will also look at it why we cannot run the code written in Python 2 in Python 3. If you know something about semantic versioning, so usually when the version changes from 2 to 3, 3 to 4, the developers can find it really hard to keep the backward compatibility. They may provide for it or they may not provide for it, but for Python 2 the 3 doesn't provide any backward compatibility. It supports more modern techniques like machine learning, data science and AI, like we saw in the previous videos about TensorFlow, Keras, OpenCV, Matplotlibs and the CBODs. So these are the different versions of difference between Python 2 and 3, and I'm not going to go into each details of these versions, so you can pause the video and note down the differences if you want. The main difference that I want to discuss is the print function, because we are going to use a lot of print statement in our development environment. We will see that in a moment when we will start to code. So you can see that if we type print hello, there is a parenthesis in Python 3 while there is no parenthesis in Python 2. And when we divide an integer, two integers, we get a float value in Python 3 while the Python 2 returns us a floor value of integer. So these are the some reasons that we cannot use Python 2 and 3, because the similar functions are written differently. Python 3 has slightly different syntax than Python 2, and Python 3 has a new range function which is used to perform iterations, then Python 2 has an X range instead of it. So let's see which version you should use for your development or for learning. So Python 3 is the clear winner because 2 is discontinued, and Python 3 mass adoption is the clear direction of the future. So that's all for the different versions of Python, which one you should use. I hope you develop your intuition about the Python 3, and finally in our next video we will learn to install Python in different operating systems, and we will also see some interpreters. So thank you for this being with me, and I'll see you next time. Hi, welcome to this video. So in this video we are going to see how we can install Python in Windows, Linux and Mac operating system. So we will first go ahead with Windows. Go to Google and type Python. Go to the first link of Python website, that's python.org. Go to the download sections and download the Python version 3.8.1 for Windows. It's a 25 MB file. Once it's downloaded, you can click on the file to run it. Now you can see that default Python installer comes up. I'll use the option default option to install Python. So that's it. Python installation is successful. To launch Python, you have to go to the start menu and type Python. Congratulations, your console is up. Python has been installed on your system. Hi, in this part we will see how we can install Python in Ubuntu. By default it is installed in Ubuntu already, but if it's not, you can always use sudo apt get install Python. As simple as that. Enter your sudo password and you can see that you can install your Python. If you install Python, the version 2.7 will be installed. If you install Python 3, the version 3.7 will be installed. You can always specify your Python version which you want to install. And finally, you can check your Python version with this command. Oops, I had a typo. And Python 3. So these are the two Python versions I have installed in my system. Hi, welcome to this video. In this video we will see how we can use Python in interactive shell. So let's start with your terminal in Linux, or you can use Python in your Windows as well as terminal in Mac. Once you are inside the terminal like this, type your command python 3. This will activate your Python 3 interactive environment. Now you can see that I'm inside the Python 3 and the version I'm using is Python 3.7. So to use this Python 3 interactive environment, we will start with some basic sets of command. For example, as we saw in one of our videos, that Python has a print statement which is the first statement we see and how to use it. So you can always type print, then a parentheses, and inside the parentheses use double quotes to say hello world. So as you can see, the Python prints hello world. Similarly, I can use this command to say hello Python, my name is, filling the blanks. So I really want you to type your name here and enter that command and share your output with me. I'll be all glad to see it. So this was the first experience of using Python in interactive environment. Next we can see how we can use Python to declare some numbers. For example, let's declare an integer value of 10. So when I declare it, you can see I shift over to next command and the value has been stored in variable a. So when I type a, you can see that I can read the value of a, which is 10. So what happens if I type print a? As you guessed it right, I will again get an output of 10. Note that there is not much difference when you use print and you directly type your variable. The output is still same. However, if you want to show multiple variables, let's suppose you described another variable as hello Python as b, and you want to add 10 to it, or you want to not really add 10 to it, you want to print both of these variables together, you can always use print statement and say b comma a. That means the value of b will be displayed first and then the value of 10. So as you can see that you can always get this value hello python comma 10. So you must be wondering where this comma came from. Actually it's this punctuation that is coming from the b. If I again use this print statement, you will no longer find this punctuation here. So I really want you to go through this variable assignment. This is called variable assignment. I really want you to go through it, try some variable assigning to it, and I'll see you next time. Hi, welcome to this video. In this video, we will learn how to install PyCharm on Windows. So go to jetbrains.com/pycharm/downloads, and there you can download the free open source community version. I have already downloaded the same, so let me go through the installation process. Once downloaded, click on your downloaded file to run the installer. The installer comes online. All you need to do is press next and next and next, and finally click on install. Once it's done, you can click on finish and type PyCharm on your start menu. Click on the PyCharm app and your PyCharm will be available for you. Do not import any settings if you don't have it installed already. Accept the terms and condition and choose your theme. It can be light or dark. Hi, welcome to this video. In this video, we will see how we will install PyCharm, that's Integrated Development Environment for Python. So head over to Google and write install PyCharm and perform a Google search. You will be greeted with the jetbrains.com website, which is the developer for this software. Head over the installation instructions and select what operating system you are installing at. So currently I'm using Ubuntu, so I'll be doing the Ubuntu Linux operating system. So once I'm in here, we are not going to use the toolbox. I will look for the commands. Using Snap, I will install the Community Edition. The Community Edition is free to use and you don't need any license for that. So head for the stable channel because there are two channels available. One for the latest release, but that channel is unstable because it's the product development channel, while the stable channel will always offer you a stable version of PyCharm. Copy this command and open your terminal. Once you have opened your terminal, paste this command and press enter. Enter your superuser password for superuser functionality. PyCharm is around a 372 MB software. So depending upon your speed, it will download from the snap. Well, congratulations. Once you see this message that PyCharm has been installed, you can always check by running this command. Oops. You might need to close and reopen the terminal, or you can always go to applications and check for newly installed PyCharm community. That's it guys, you can see that we have created PyCharm uh, and this is how you install it. Until next time. Hi, welcome to this video. From this part onwards, things get more excited. So in this part, we are going to discuss the basic syntax for Python. So make sure you open your PyCharm and create a new project for it. You can name this project as whatever you like. I'm going to name it as test project and create a new project with that. Note that you can see PyCharm is using the virtual environment. We will come back to it later. Let me introduce you to the PyCharm first. The left hand side area you see is the project area, where you can see all your project files, external libraries, and scratches and consoles. The right hand side main area is the area where your files open and you can start doing additions. As usual, you have a file menu, and in the bottom left corner you have your terminal, Python console, and to-do list. So go ahead and open your terminal. As you can see, once you open the terminal, there is the name V environment written in front of it. That's the virtual environment that PyCharm has created for your project. Now let's begin with checking out our Python version in this terminal. So we are working on a Python 3.7.5. This terminal is actually your interpreter for this project. The multiple projects will have different interpreters. So let's begin with your adding first file. Go to your test and add your first Python file. Name your file as the way you like. I'm going to name it as test. Once your file has been added, you can list these files using ls command in the terminal. You can see there is a test.py file already. Now if you want to run this test.py file, you can always use the command python test.py file. But since the file is empty, you won't see any output. Now let's write our first print statement. I'm going to write print hello Python. Now you see that our file has a set of instructions that calls print hello Python. So when I run this command again, you can see that I'm going to have an output of hello Python. So as you see it, we have our output here. Now let's understand more about the syntax. The Python 3.7 needs parentheses for the print command, while a hashtag represents a single line of comment. So this command is useful when you write your functions and give description to it. So above print statement, I can say writes hello. So this hashtag doesn't get executed when you run this Python command. So as you can see, we still have the same. Next I want to talk about is indentation functions. For this I want to take you to the example if loop. So I'm going to take a condition if 1 is equal to 1, which is always going to be true, and add a colon. You can see that there is a small indentation here. So I'm going to print again. As you can see, I have a typo here in if, and the PyCharm tells me about this. So I'll correct the mistake. Now once I have to write about else statement, I'll type else and a colon and press enter. I'll again print command and say else. Now let's try to run this file. So you can see that I receive print of hello Python, that is my first set of instruction, and when 1 is equal to 1, which is always going to be true, I print hello. If I compare 1 is equal to 2, you can see that I will print else. That was for if and else statement. Notice the indentation or the space bit ahead of print. This is the standard Python syntax and structure. Once you encounter a colon, you have to place an indent so that your file runs. If I remove this indent and try to run this file, you are going to see that I receive an error. Notice, as you can see, that I have an indentation error. Next I'm going to talk about the multi-line comment. So you can always use your this slash and star. You can always use a triple quote for a multi-line comment. These comments doesn't get executed. I'm going to need comment this, comment this, comment this, and comment this. So you can see that this is a comment with multi-line. So that's all for now, and I'll see you next time. In this video we will see what are the basic data types Python has to offer. Python has 5 standard data types. These are numbers, strings, lists, tuples, and dictionaries. Let's take a look. In our previous video we saw about comments. So I'm going to write a comment here about numbers. Now if I want to assign some number to an variable a, I will simply write down a is equal to 10. This assigns 10 to number a. Note that 10 is an integer point value, while I can also assign a floating point value of 10.12 integer b. This is how you assign numbers. Let's talk about strings. Strings are immutable, but you can declare a string with, say, string hello equals to hello Python. That's how you assign a string. Let's print this hello as well. If we talk about some list can be an array of numbers and strings, or a floating point integers. And you can also print a list. Coming back to our tuples, tuples are numbers or a data type that has parentheses like this. So this one is a tuple. Let's go ahead and declare a dictionary. Dictionary is a key value pair. So if I say dic is equal to, notice that brand is the key and Ford is the value, car is the key, and Mustang is the value. Let's print the type. Let's print the dictionary. Now since you have seen the all types of data type in Python, let's try to print them. Let's try to run our file and see what the print statements has to offer. As you can see, we get a 10, that is an integer, 10.1, that's a float, hello Python is a string, this one is a list, 12 and 10 is a number, is a tuple, while dic is the dictionary. You can also print the data type of these variables using the function dtype. So you can always print the dtype of a. Oops, it says the dtype is not defined. Instead of dtype, you should use the type. So type, you can see that type of a is an integer class. Let's print the type of every variable we declared so far. So we declared a, we declared b, we declared hello, we declared a list, and we also declared a dictionary. So you can see that in our output window we have an integer, we have a float, we have a string, a list, and a dictionary. So these are the basic data types the Python has to offer. I hope you get an intuition about these data types, and I'll see you next time. Hi, welcome to this video. In this video we will see the different operators Python has to offer. So Python supports all the basic arithmetic operations of addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, floor division, and modulus. Let's take a look at addition. So let's declare a number of 12 and let's declare another number of 10. So if we want to perform addition on these two numbers, you can always do print a plus b, or you can also assign this result to a new variable and print that variable. Let's assign it to sum. When I print sum, I should get the value of 32. Let's try to run this file. Oops, I get a syntax error there. Let's try again. So you can see that I get a sum of 22. Sorry, my mistake for the earlier part of 32. Now let's try to do some subtraction. So I'll note down the comments of here that we are performing the subtraction. We already have a value of 12 and b value of 10. When we subtract from b from a, we are going to receive a value of 2. Let's find out. So you can see that first one is 22, that's the sum, that's the subtraction. Now I want to introduce a way of better printing using the format function. So you can always write a string over here that says sum of these numbers is, and use these curl brackets and type format, and inside the format you can see this word sum. Now you see that instead of just printing out the sum, you'll have some string as well as the value inside it. So you can see the difference. Now let's perform the multiplication. I want to multiply these two numbers as well. I'll again copy this one and say multiplication of numbers is mul string.format mul. Let's try to print it out. As you can see that we received an answer of 120. I want to go through a division as well. So note that there are two types of division. First one is division 1, that gives you a floating point value. So on dividing these two numbers, if we use just a single division operator, you can see that our result is a floating point value. Let's try to run this. You can see that result is 1.2. But if I use a double division operator, you will see that this result will be rounded off to an integer value. This value is called floor of the number. So it's rounded off to the value of 1. So it will round off to the integer. Even if it's 1.9, it will round off to the integer number 1 instead of 2, because it takes the floor value. Now if we talk about modulus is which returns the remainder on division. Let's try to see that. And print mod. So you can see that when we divide 12 by 10, we get a remainder of 2, and our mod functions return the remainder of 2. So these are the basic Python operators that can be used. I hope you enjoy this video, and I'll see you next time. Hi, welcome to this video of decision making. So decision operators are the one which take decision based upon some condition. We are going to discuss about if operator and a while operator. Let's take a look. Let's suppose that we declare a variable equal to 10 and we use if var is equal to 10, print value of var is dot format. This will print that value of var is 10. Else we are going to print value of var is not 10. Let's try to run this code. You can see that value of var is 10. Now let's change the value of var to 11. Now if I try to run this code, it says values of var is not 10. So you can see that this is how decision operators work. Now let's talk about the while statement. If I say while var is less than 10, I put an expression of var is less than 10 and declare var to 0, increment, print the value of var and increment var by 1. So this will print value of var from 0 to 9. So you can see that initially we set the value of var as 0 and it is not equal to 10, then it say value of var is not 10, and finally it checks on this condition that if var is less than 10, it will keep on printing the var and it will increment the var by 1. So this is an example of while loop. While loop always looks for a condition while it is executing. Note that while loop can stuck in some forms. If I write some statement like this, while 1 equal to 1, you are going to see that this is going to stuck in an infinite loop. So you can see the terminal is updating the while loop and it is not going to end. So I will use Control and C or Command C for your Mac to interrupt this while loop. This is how the looping works, or the decision operators work. One more decision operator I want to talk about is single statement if condition. Let's say if var is equal to 0, then I'm going to say print value of var is since we have already declared var as 0, you can see that oops, I need to let go of this while loop. So you can see that value of var is 0. That's a single statement if. Note that there is a nested if and else statement as well. So you can say var equal to 0, execute some set of instructions. You can also say if var 1 equal to 1, execute another set of instructions, and also say if another condition var 2 equal to 1, execute a set of another conditions, and finally else, execute another set of condition. Let's declare var 1 equal to 1 and var 2 equal to 2. So what do you think the output will be? Of course, if var 1 is equal to 0, we will enter this if loop and we printed the value of hello. Since the value of var 2 is equal to 2, and the value of var 1 equal to 1, we will print hello 1. That's all for the decision operators. I hope you like this video and I'll see you next time. Hi, welcome to this video. This video is about Python loops. So Python has two types of loop, for loop and while loop. In our first part, we will see how we can use for loop over range of numbers. So let's dive in. So the basic syntax for loop over range of number goes like this. For I in range 10, print I. Notice the indentation. I always have an indentation of 2 when I write next instruction for the for loop. Let's try to run the results of this for loop. So here you can see that from 0 to 9 I have printed 10 numbers including 0. So that's how you can use for loop for the range of numbers. You can also specify the range starting from some number. Let's say I want to start the range from 2. I can simply type a 2 there and print the value of I. Let's try to run this again. So now you can see that our loop starts from 2 and ends at 9. This is how the Python for loops in numbers work. Now let's take a look at how we can use for loop over a number of strings. So let's print string S or character C in hello world and say print char. So this is how you write the for loop in strings. For char in hello world, print char. Let's try to run this loop. So if you see the output window, you see each character is being printed in its own row. That for every loop it is running, for every time the loop is running, each character is having its own loop. That's why we can see HELLO, a white space character, and WORLD and an exclamation mark. Now let's take a look how we can use for loop in a list. So let's type a comment here, for loop in over a list, and let's type our loop. So for number, or instead of for variable in, let's suppose that my list is a number of strings and of course integers, and this is how we can use the for loop in the list of different strings and numbers. Let's try to run this. So you can see that in the end I can see 1, John and 3 as well. So this is how you loop over the list in using for loop in Python. Now let's talk about while loop. So while loop is a kind of conditional loop. It checks for the condition, whether the condition is true or not before executing the loop. So let's see, while x is less than 10, print x, and let's increment x by 1, or you can write it in another way. Now let's try to run this loop as well. Oops, it says x is not defined because we have to initialize x there as 0. Now while my x is less than 10, so you can see that it starts from 0, it goes all the way to 9. So if my x is less than 100, I think you guessed it correct, it will go all the way to 99. So that's it. Notice that for every set of instruction a while loop follows, it always checks for condition. For example, when x is 0, it goes to x plus 1, that x goes to 1, and checks for the condition if x is less than 100. If it is, it will execute the loop. If it is not less than 100, it will break out of the loop. When we talk about breaking out of the loop, let's see what is the break condition. So break is anything when you want to break loop for, or you want to come out of the loop. So in this case, if I put a break here, you are going to see that my loop will break at only x equals to 1. Let's see how. So when I run this, it breaks at 0, it prints 0 but breaks at 1. The value of x is equal to 1. If I print this value over here, you can see that my x got let's make it more informative now, breaking at value of x dot format x. So you can see that breaking at value of x equal to 1. So at when x is 1, when we increment x by 1, the loops break. Similarly, you can use break in for loop as well. For I in range, let's say 10,000, and let's say print use break statement, use break statement and break the loop. Now you can see that this, if this break is not present, this print statement will be executed for 10,000 times, but since this break statement is present, this break will run only once, because when it is, this loop will run only once, because when break is encountered, it will print the statement and come out of the loop. So now you can see that it used only the break statement for once, and once it encountered the break, it came out of the loop. So that's it for the Python loops, and I hope you enjoy this video, and I'll see you next time. Hi, welcome to this video on Python numbers. Numbers are something that extend on a number line from minus infinity to plus infinity. The numbers on left hand side of 0 are the negative numbers, and on right hand side of 0 are called positive numbers. All these numbers together are called integers. Let's declare an integer value of 4 in variable a, and let's declare another variable b with an integer value of 5. Now let's try to sum these numbers in Python. So to sum these numbers, I will simply declare a sum as a variable and add these two numbers as a plus b and print the result. Let's print our result using Python test.py file. So as you can see that we have 9 as the result of summation of two numbers, that's 4 and 5, which is correct. Now let's take a look at another scenario when we subtract these two numbers. Now I'm going to put on these two numbers in a sub variable and say a minus b. So what is going to be the result of a minus b? It is going to be a negative integer of minus 1. Let's take a look. Print sub minus 1. So notice that you see that this is minus 1 here and 9 from our previous result. Now let's take a look on how we can multiply numbers. So for multiplication, you can always use mul is equal to a asterisk b, that is stands for multiplication. So 4 asterisk 5, 4 multiplied by 5 is going to be 20. Let's take a look. So as you can see that our result is correct, it's 20. Now in the next we are going to see the division. So let's see how about division. Now when I divide a by b, notice that my a is 4 and b is 5. The answer should be, you guessed it correct, it should be 0.8. So let's print this value. As you can see, the value is 0.8. Notice that the point numbers or the fraction numbers in Python or in for that matter any programming language are called floating values, and you can always use these floating values in your computations, and these floating value can be declared something like this, and you can round off them to some number decimal places as you like, or you can extend them to as many as you wish. So this is about numbers. One last thing I want to talk about is list of numbers. So if you saw our one of the data variables video in which we talk about list, I'm going to tell you how we can declare a list of numbers or an array of numbers. So notice that this is how you declare a list of numbers. Let's take a print of this statement as well. So you can see that 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 up to 8 are a list of numbers. So this is about Python numbers. I hope you enjoy this video and I'll see you next time. Hi, welcome to this video on strings. Let's take a look on how we can create a strings and perform some operations on it. Let's dive in. So first of all, it's to create a string. I'm going to create a variable called string and put a value called hello world. So as you can see that we have created a string and with a O capital here. So this is one of the way of how you can declare a string. There is another way that you can declare a string is by using single quotes instead of double. So this is also a way how you can declare a string. There is one more way that you can declare a string using a triple quote. That's how you declare the string. Now to access a character, let's say that we want to access the second character of a string, that is E. To access this character, what I'll need to do is print string. Notice that these strings start from 0, then I'll print my 1 here. Let's try to run this file. So as you can see that we were able to print E. That's the second character of my string. Similarly, if you want to access the last character of the string, you can simply note down -1. So the last character is the exclamation mark and we will receive that. You can see an exclamation mark here. Now let's talk about string splicing. So let's suppose that you want to extract some part of a string. So you can use this string splicing method. Since let's suppose that we want to extract this world. So let's take a look on the index of W. So that starts with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Let's try our extracting or splicing from the index of 6. So you can see that we were able to extract world from hello world using string splicing. You can also mention a ending number here and or ending index of the character that you want to extract, and you can extract a range of index from the string. That's how the string splicing works. Now if I talk about strings mutability, we cannot mute a string. Let's suppose that on first index, that is value of E, I want to assign a new value of age. I cannot do that. It will throw me an error. So you can see that I received an error. Since Python doesn't support or strings are not mutable, I'll have to comment this one out, else my next functions won't work. Next, which we are often using in our programming exercise, is formatting of strings. So we can always use format method and it will automatically create some other data type, for example integers in this case, to a string and append this to a string. Let's suppose this is an example of an integer. Now you can see that I'm able to bind integer with a string. There you go. You can see that this is an example of integer 1, 2, 3. Similarly, you can add a floating value here and say this is an example of floating integer. So you can see 123.12. Now let's take a look on the length function. Now suppose we want to calculate the length of a string. So all I need to do is len, len, length, and pass the string I want to calculate its length for. So you can see that my hello world is a 12-letter correct string. Now let's talk about string split method. If I use a string split, it will create each it will create a list of a string. Let's take a look what is mean by that. So you can see that each word that is hello has been created in a list, and it is being splitted on a white space. So if we use just a split method, it will split the string into a list on a character. Since we are passing no character here, so it will split this string on a white space. Let's pass a character small l, and you will see that the string will be split on small l. So you can see he is assigned to different index, and double l is an empty because we are going to split on double l, and then o white space wor has been assigned to as 1, and l is again omitted, and then we have d and an exclamation mark for the string split value. Now let's take a look on our lower function. Notice that we have a word that is o, which was in the capital character, which is not a user friendly way of treating of working with strings. So if I use the word lower, you can see that I am able to successfully lower down the string for comparison or for any other operations. So that's how you work with the strings. There are a lot of other methods available for the Python strings. Please go ahead and try some new methods and share your results with us. Until next time. Hello and welcome to this video of tuples. In this video we will see what are Python tuples and how we can create new tuples and some operations on tuples. So let's dive in. So on creating tuples, we can create our tuples like this. So first I'll declare a variable called tuple and give value to this tuple. So let's say I give Python world as 2 values to this tuple. Note I can also create a tuple like this. I can have a parentheses around these two, and finally I can print this value of tuple. Let's see by printing these two tuples. So in our console we will say python test.py. So you can see that both values, though both values are same, has been printed by Python interpreter. Now let's go and check out the concatenations of tuple. To concatenate two tuples, for example, we are working with tuple and tuple1, all we need to do is print tuple plus tuple1, and we can run a command. So you can see that we have been able to concatenate these two different tuples. So you must be wondering that these tuples looks kind of familiar with list. Well, yes, they do look like a list, but they have a difference from a list. List is a mutable, and while the tuples are not mutable. On mutability we will go in this section, but first let's see what are the nested tuples. So if I want to create a nested tuple, what I will do is I will create a new tuple and put tuple comma tuple1 as the value of this tuple3, and finally print this tuple. So you can see that we have a tuple, and inside this tuple we have two tuples of Python world. Now let's talk about repetition. Suppose I want to repeat this tuple of Python world for 4 times. All I need to do is tuple asterisk 4. Let's see. So you can see that this Python world has been printed 4 times. Notice that this is the same tuple that we created in the tuple variable. Now let's talk about mutability. So if I talk about mutability, first I need to perform a length operation on this tuple and check out the length of this tuple. Oops, I forgot to print this length of the tuple. So you can see that length of the tuple is 2, but I cannot do this to a tuple. It will throw me an error. Why? Because this tuple is immutable. In fact, all the Python tuples are immutable. That's why we see an error that tuple object does not support item assignment. That's the difference between a tuple and a list. Well, this is about all the tuples, and I'll see you next time. Hi, welcome to this video on Python dictionaries. So Python dictionaries are the data types that store key and value pairs, and in this video we will see how we can create dictionary, add some elements to it, access those elements and finally remove them. So let's dive into our first example of creating a dictionary. So I'll create a new variable called example, and in this variable you can see that I have initialized just empty curl brackets. So this is an example of declaring an empty dictionary. While in example 1 I want to show you that this is an example of a dictionary with key of 1 and 2 and values are hello and world. So here you can see that in example 1 we have a key and value pair for each key. That is, for example, integer 1 we have a value of hello, and for integer 2 we have a value of world. Let's try to print both of these dictionaries. So first we will print example and then we will print example 1. It's time to run this command. Oops, there is a typo here. That's why we see an error. Now you can see that we are able to print both an empty set of dictionaries and the dictionary which has two values in it for 1 and 2. Now let's go ahead and start adding some elements to it. If I want to add some element to example, so what I will do is I will access that variable of dictionary, give it some value of key, for example fruit, and assign it some value, and that value is mango. Let's try to print this example. Now you can see that in example 1 I have been able to add fruit as the key in the string and mango as its value. Similarly, if you want to add some another example to example 1, let's add a third element of saying a vehicle. Let's try to print this as well. We forgot to print. Now you can see that we have successfully appended this value of 3 and vehicle in this dictionary. It's time to access these elements now. To access any element of the dictionary, for example, I want to access the value of 3 in example 1. All I need to do is print example 1, and inside the square brackets I type the key, name of the key I want to access. So I want to access the value of 3, that's why I have typed the key of 3. Now you can see that I'm able to access the value of key 3, which is vehicle. Now in the last example I want to show you how we can remove some values. So to remove any value we will use the del operator, and finally in this give it the index and value of key 3 will be removed from example 1. Now you can see that here we have left with only with two values, that is 1 and 2. These are the operations for Python dictionary. I hope you enjoyed this video and I'll see you next time. Hi, welcome to this video of Python datetime. In this video we will see how we can import datetime module and do some operations on it. So let's dive in. So first of all, type import and write datetime to import your module. To declare a datetime in a variable x, let's access the datetime we imported and use the function datetime.now to extract the current date and time, and finally print that datetime using x. As you can see that we have been able to successfully print the datetime, that's 21st of January 2020, and the time is 17:18:42.39. That's too precise. Now we will see another function which datetime has to offer. This is called string format time. So this module will format our datetime into different options. Since our datetimes is already stored in variable x, so what we will do is we will use x dot string format datetime and try to pass on this formatting string. So if we want to extract weekday in all the letters, not in the short form but in the all long form, we will use %A, and you will see that current day is also being printed, that is Tuesday. If we use this as a small a, and if you have guessed it correct, it will be a shorter form of the day. That's how you can use string shift time. There are a couple of methods that are available with this string shift time method, so I highly encourage you to go ahead and watch out those methods available. Since using b, it prints the current month we are in, and that's how you use this datetime module. This is all about datetime, and I'll see you next time. Hi, welcome to this video on Python functions. So we have already seen how the print function works. All you need to do is write print and use the parentheses, and inside the parentheses in double quotes you write whatever you want to print. So this is what we are doing all along. What if you want to define your own function that takes in some arguments and do some operations, and sometimes it returns the output or it prints out that output? Let's see how we can use the functions and define our own function. So let's dive in. To define your own function, what you need to do is write this keyword def, that stands for definition, and I am going to write a function that sums two numbers. So all I need to do is give the name of the function, that is sum, and put a parenthesis on it. Since our function is going to accept two arguments, so let's say integer 1 and integer 2 are my two arguments. I am going to write a colon and press enter. Note that we have an indentation here. If you do not indent your function or the next set of instruction inside your function, it will throw you an error. Let's try to print what is inside the int 1 and int 2. Note that when I run this project, nothing will be printed here except the hello we have just typed in here. Why is that so? Because this function has been defined but it has not been called. So now let's try to call this function with two arguments of 2 and 3. Now what do you expect? The output. If you have guessed it correct, the output will be 2, 3. Let's check this. Let's check it out. As you have imagined, the output will be 2 and 3 just because we are printing these two integers and we are passing these two arguments inside this function. Let's instead print the sum of these two integers. all I need to do is remove the comma and press enter a sum operator or add operator. Let's try to print it again. This time we see it 5, which is the sum of these two numbers. Instead of printing, you can also return the result of these two numbers like this, and you can store the result in a new variable called a and print the value of a. Let's try to run it again. So as you see that once we assign sum to a variable a and print a, we get the same output of 5. But in this case our function is returning the sum of these two numbers instead of printing them from the function inside. That's how you define the functions in Python. I hope you enjoy this video and I'll see you next time. Hi and welcome to this video on Python modules. So modules are the class of library that you can import in your project, and in this video we will be discussing how we can install Python module packages and use it in our applications. For current video I'll be using the request packages. So you can always go to this website py.org to find out your different modules. We are going to work with this module, and to install this module there is pip command, that stands for Python package install request. So let's go to our py chart and try to install this module with the command pip install requests. As you can see that my request module is already installed, so this is giving me that requirement is already satisfied. But in your case this might be different, but this is the same command that you have to do to install request. Now let's see how we can import the request into our project. All you need to do is import request, and if you want to import this request as a variable name you can use it as req like I am doing it here, but you can change your name according to your needs. Now to use this request module, what we need to do is we use req.get, and inside the get you can see that I have to provide a URL, a params, and some other arguments. So in our case we will be visiting, for example, google.com and store the results in a variable called results, and finally we will print the value of result dot status code. So if you are somewhat into programming, so there are different status codes like 200 for the successful request, 404 for not found, 500 for internal server error, and there are some other codes as well. So you don't need to worry about it right now, but yeah, you can print these status code like that. Finally you can use again the print command to print the result or the text whatever came from www.google.com to our project using this module. Now let's try to run our file. Oh, so you see that when I use the request modules, this is the long result I receive from the Google. So here is our request status code, that is 200 for success, and finally you can see that it is an HTML document. If I copy and paste this HTML document into some HTML file, you are going to see that this is nothing but a HTML page that is being delivered to any client who is using www.google.com, because when we visit there all you get get is a search engine's front page. So that's about Python modules, and this is about Python request modules. I hope you like this video, and I'll see you next time. Hi, welcome to this video on Python files. In this video, we will learn how we can work with files, how we can write data into the files and read data from it. With this, let's get started. So to write a data into a file, all you need to do is write with and type open. So it gives you, when you type open, it gives you file, mode, buffering, encoding, errors, new line, and so on, these kind of arguments that you can pass. So our file will be the file name, for example, video.txt. And since I'm going to write in this file, so my mode will be writing. So I'm not worried about encoding or anything else. So open this file as F, but you can write any other variable you want to write. And then finally you can use f dot write, and inside the write all you need to say is my first file statement, and here you can add a new line character and write my second file statement. All right, so looks like we have no error here. Let's try to run this. Python test.py file, and we have been able to run it successfully. And over here, if I don't need to refresh it, you can see that video.txt file has appeared. Earlier it was not here. Now it's time to read from the file. So we done our writing operation. Now we will do reading operations. Let's open this file with open command again. So our file name is video.txt, and this time we open this file in a reading mode, and finally we will print whatever is there using read. So this read will print everything that is there in the file. So inside our file we have two statements that says first file statement and second file statements. Let's try to read this. So you can see that we have successfully read our file, and we were able to write inside the file, and we were able to read from the file. This is how you work with Python files. I hope you like this video, and I'll see you next time. Hi, welcome to this final video on Python exceptions. In this video, we will learn how we can handle error code and exceptions in Python. So that exceptional handling can be done using try and catch method, what we call it in other programming languages, and in this we call it as try and except. Let's see what that means is. If I try to print value of x, what do you think this is going to be? Well, it will throw me an error because x is not defined. Of course, it does throw me an error that it's a name error. X is not defined. But when you are running this program and your program is throwing some kind of errors and crashing and not giving next outputs, is a very frustrating task for any user. Let's try to bind this value of print x in a try and except statement. So in try and except statement, all I can do is exception occurred. So this is how you write the code in these two code blocks, and let's try to run this file. Now you can see that it is different. The file or the interpreter didn't crash on occurring an exception. Instead, it tried to run what this code block in exception is. So if I define x equal to 10, now you are going to see that we have the value of x which is equal to 10. This is a very clean way of handling this exception. And if I change this variable to y, so you can see again we are going to enter the realm of exception, and our program has given whatever is the instruction in the print except statement or the except code block. So this is how you handle the exceptions in Python. This is a very clean way of handling the exceptions. Your code doesn't crash, your code runs from top to bottom and completes itself if you use try and except approach. And whenever you do a development in a professional field, you always bind your code into these blocks where you think that there can be an error for some variables to be available and while the other are not. So with this final video, here comes the end of our video series for Python for beginners. I hope you develop some cool applications and share it to the world around you. And I'll see you next time.